What if I told you the very injection your doctor gave you to stop your agonizing knee pain, the shot you might be scheduling right now, could be the exact thing destroying the final millimeters of cartilage you have left? Every single day in my clinic, a patient over the age of 60 sits on my exam table, points to their knee, and asks me for a cortisone shot. They want the quick fix. They want the magic needle that lets them walk down the stairs without wincing, and 80% of the time, I have to look them in the eye, shake my head, and say, no. Welcome back to the channel. I am Dr. Marcus Thorne, a clinical orthopedic specialist, and for over 2 decades I've specialized in treating senior joint degradation. What breaks my heart to see is how many older adults are blindly caught in the injection trap. You are told you have bone-on-bone osteoarthritis. You are offered a shot. You get temporary relief. But behind the scenes, your joint is quietly deteriorating at an accelerated rate, pushing you faster and faster toward a total joint replacement you might have otherwise delayed. By the end of our time together today, you are going to understand exactly why your joint injection relief keeps shrinking every time you get one. You will learn the critical biological difference between simply numbing a joint and actually lubricating it. Most importantly, I am going to give you the exact 3 questions you absolutely must ask your orthopedic doctor before you ever let them bring a needle near your knee again. But before we dive into the biology of your joints, I want to hear from you. Right now, today, which joint is causing you the most grief when you try to stand up from a chair or get out of bed? Is it your right knee? Your left hip? Let me know in the comments down below. I read them, and it helps me know exactly what to cover in our next videos. To understand why this is happening to you, I want to tell you about Margaret. Margaret is a 68-year-old retired elementary school teacher from Grand Rapids, Michigan. She came to my clinic about 8 months ago, incredibly frustrated and on the verge of tears. Margaret loved to garden, and she loved getting down on the floor to play with her 3 young grandchildren. But over the last 5 years, osteoarthritis had practically taken over her right knee. Her previous doctor had taken an X-ray, pointed to the screen, and used that terrifying phrase we all hate to hear, bone on bone. Her doctor's solution? A standard corticosteroid injection. Margaret vividly remembered her first shot. It felt like a miracle. For 6 solid months, she had her life back. She could kneel in the dirt. She could carry groceries up her front steps, and she didn't feel a twinge of pain. But then the ache returned, so she went back and got a second shot. This time, the relief only lasted 4 months. She went back for a third. The relief lasted 2 months. By the time Margaret sat in my exam room, she was getting a cortisone shot every 12 weeks like clockwork, the maximum frequency her insurance would allow, and the relief was barely lasting 4 weeks. For the other 8 weeks, she was limping, relying on a cane, and popping over-the-counter NSAIDs just to get to the bathroom at night. She looked at me and asked the question so many of you are probably asking right now. Dr. Thorne, why isn't the medicine working anymore? Is my arthritis just that aggressive? I had to explain to Margaret the hidden, structural truth about what those repeated cortisone shots were actually doing to her knee. And it's a truth you need to understand if you want to keep your mobility. You see, we have to look at what a corticosteroid actually is. Cortisone is not a lubricant. It is not a cushion. It does not replace the cartilage you have lost. Cortisone is, fundamentally, a highly potent anti-inflammatory medication. Imagine your knee joint is a house, and osteoarthritis is a raging fire inside that house. A cortisone shot is like the fire department showing up and spraying high-pressure foam over the flames. It rapidly suppresses the acute inflammation. It stops the swelling. It turns off the heat. But here is the catch. It also unplugs the fire alarm. Pain is your body's built-in alarm system. It is a biological stop sign telling you, hey, this joint is mechanically compromised. Do not put heavy, repetitive stress on it right now. When you flood a weight-bearing joint with a powerful steroid, you silence that alarm completely. Suddenly, you feel great. So what do? You go for a 2-mile walk, you climb ladders, you carry heavy boxes, you move with the confidence of a 30-year-old. But mechanically, nothing inside the joint has been fixed. The friction is still there. The bone is still grinding closer to bone. Because you can no longer feel the pain, you end up subjecting your compromised cartilage to immense mechanical stress, grinding it down even faster than you were before the shot. And unfortunately, it gets worse. Modern clinical guidelines and recent studies in orthopedic medicine have revealed a darker side to repeated long-term steroid use in weight-bearing joints. Corticosteroids, while fantastic for putting out acute severe fires, are actually toxic to chondrocytes, the cells that make up your cartilage. If you repeatedly inject cortisone into a joint every 3 months for years on end, the medication itself begins to accelerate cartilage volume loss. It literally weakens and breaks down the very tissue you are desperately trying to save. That is exactly why Margaret's relief was shrinking. The first shot gave her 6 months because she still had a decent layer of weakened cartilage left. But with every subsequent shot, she was turning off her pain alarm, grinding down her joint, and exposing that joint to tissue-weakening steroids. By her 5th shot, there was practically no cushion left to protect. Now, let me be very clear. I am not saying cortisone is evil. It is not. It is an incredibly valuable tool in orthopedic medicine. If you have an acutely swollen, hot, agonizing joint flare-up that is preventing you from even starting physical therapy or sleeping through the night, a single strategically placed cortisone shot can be a lifesaver. It calms the acute storm. The danger lies in the routine. The danger lies in treating cortisone as a long-term maintenance plan for bone-on-bone pain. If your doctor's only long-term strategy for your knee pain is writing you down for another steroid injection every 3 months, you are on a fast track to the operating table. Margaret was shocked. She felt betrayed by her own treatment plan. "So what am I supposed to do?" she asked me. "If I can't use cortisone to stop the pain and I'm not ready for a total knee replacement, how do I get my life back?" The answer lies in understanding the difference between numbing a joint and actually lubricating it. And to explain that, I want you to picture a dry, brittle kitchen sponge. Imagine a brand new kitchen sponge sitting on your counter. It is slightly damp, bouncy, and squishy. If you press your hand into it, it absorbs the pressure and bounces right back. If you slide it across the granite countertop, it glides smoothly. That damp, bouncy sponge is what healthy cartilage acts like inside a young, healthy knee. It is bathed in a thick, slippery substance called synovial fluid, which absorbs shock and provides a frictionless glide every time you take a step. Now, imagine leaving that sponge out in the hot sun for 3 days. It becomes dry, crusty, brittle, and thin. If you try to press it, it doesn't bounce. It just crunches. If you try to slide it across the counter, it scrapes roughly against the stone. That dry, brittle sponge is what your cartilage looks and acts like when you have osteoarthritis. And the friction from that scraping is what causes the inflammation, the swelling, and that agonizing pain you feel when you stand up. Let's apply our 2 treatments to this dry sponge. If you use cortisone, it is the equivalent of injecting your own hand with Novocaine, so you simply can't feel the sponge anymore. You grab that dry, crusty sponge and you scrub the counter as hard as you can. You don't feel the scraping, but the friction is tearing that brittle sponge to shreds. By the time the Novocaine wears off, half the sponge is missing. That is the tragedy of overusing steroid injections. You are sacrificing the structural integrity of your joint for a few weeks of artificial comfort. But what if, instead of numbing your hand, we poured a thick layer of water and dish soap directly onto that dry sponge? Suddenly, the sponge plumps up just a little bit. More importantly, the surface becomes slick again. It glides across the counter. The friction is significantly reduced, which means the underlying surface is protected from further scraping. In orthopedic medicine, that soap and water approach is called viscosupplementation, commonly known as hyaluronic acid injections, or simply gel shots. Hyaluronic acid is a naturally occurring substance found in the synovial fluid of young, healthy joints. It is the body's premier biological lubricant. But as we age, and as osteoarthritis sets in, our natural synovial fluid thins out. It loses its viscosity. It becomes more like water and less like motor oil, A gel injection directly replaces that lost viscosity. We are literally putting synthetic motor oil back into the engine. I had a patient named Thomas, a 72-year-old former warehouse supervisor living in Phoenix, Arizona. Thomas was a tough guy, used to working on his feet all day. When his left knee started giving out, his previous doctor told him he needed a knee replacement, but that he could try cortisone in the meantime. Like Margaret, the cortisone stopped working. When he came to me, I brought up hyaluronic acid injections. Thomas scoffed. He told me, "Dr. Thorne, I read online that those gel shots are just an expensive gimmick. They don't regrow cartilage." I looked at Thomas and said, "You are absolutely right. They do not regrow dead cartilage. If any doctor or clinic ever promises you a shot that will magically regrow cartilage that is gone, you should walk out the door immediately. But regrowing cartilage isn't the goal. The goal is friction reduction." I explained the dry sponge analogy to him. I explained that we weren't trying to reverse his arthritis. We were trying to change the mechanical environment inside his knee from high friction to low friction. Thomas agreed to a series of gel injections. It didn't work overnight. Hyaluronic acid can take a few weeks to fully integrate into the joint capsule. But by week 4, Thomas called my clinic. He wasn't entirely pain-free, but the sharp, grinding, catching sensation he felt every time he stood up from the dinner table was gone. Because the joint was lubricated, he could finally tolerate physical therapy. He built up his quadriceps, and we managed to push his knee replacement off for another 4 years, allowing him to travel to his grandson's wedding in Italy without needing a walker. This brings us to a crucial point about medical caution and the true, proper place for cortisone. I am not telling you to flush cortisone down the drain. Let's look at another patient of mine, Elena, a 65-year-old florist. Elena came to me during an acute arthritic flare-up. Her knee wasn't just stiff, it was red, hot to the touch, swollen to the size of a grapefruit, and throbbing even when she was just lying in bed. She couldn't do physical therapy because she couldn't even bend the joint 10 degrees. For Elena, a gel shot would have been useless at that moment. You cannot lubricate a joint that is actively on fire. For Elena, we used a single targeted corticosteroid injection to put out the fire. It worked beautifully. Within 3 days, the swelling plummeted. But, and this is the most critical part of her treatment plan, we did not schedule a follow-up shot for 3 months later. We used that window of pain relief to immediately start targeted strength training. We used the steroid to open a door, not as a permanent crutch. The mistake the medical system makes, and the mistake millions of seniors unknowingly accept, is relying on the fire extinguisher every single day instead of actually fixing the electrical wiring that keeps starting the fire. Many of you have been frightened by the term bone on bone. Doctors use it all the time. But let me tell you a clinical secret. Bone on bone is mostly a scare tactic. It is an X-ray finding, not a death sentence for your mobility. Even in severe osteoarthritis, there are microscopic layers of tissue, joint capsule lining, and fluid pockets left. By shifting your focus from numbing the bone to lubricating the space, you change the entire trajectory of your aging joints. But you cannot make this shift if you don't know how to advocate for yourself in the exam room. When you are sitting in that chilly doctor's office, wearing a paper gown, and the surgeon walks in with a syringe, the power dynamic is heavily tilted against you. You are given roughly 7 minutes to make a decision about your joint's future. If you want to stop accelerating your cartilage loss, you have to take control of that conversation. You need to know the exact phrasing to stop a reflexive cortisone injection and pivot the treatment plan toward joint preservation. So, what exactly do you say when the doctor walks in? Let's go over the exact 3 questions you must memorize before your next appointment. Here are the 3 specific non-negotiable questions you need to ask your orthopedic doctor before you ever let them prep your knee, hip, or shoulder for another injection. Question number 1. Doctor, how many total corticosteroid injections have I received in this specific joint over the last 24 months, and are you concerned about cartilage toxicity? This question is incredibly powerful. First, it forces the doctor to stop, look away from their computer screen, and actually review your chart's timeline. In a busy clinic, it is far too easy for a physician to see a patient in pain, See that it's been 12 weeks since the last shot, and just reflexively order another one. By asking this, you are signaling that you understand the cumulative, toxic danger steroids pose to your remaining cartilage. If the answer is that you've had 3, 4, or 5 shots in a single weight-bearing joint over a short period, and the doctor is not concerned about cartilage volume loss, you might need a second opinion. Question number 2. If we agree to do a steroid injection today to calm the acute pain, what is our immediate physical therapy and strengthening plan for next week? Remember Elena, the florist with the severely swollen knee? We used the steroid to put out the fire, but the very next week, she was in physical therapy. A cortisone shot without a follow-up physical therapy plan is a completely wasted medical intervention. If your doctor's only plan is to give you the shot and tell you to come back when it hurts again, they are failing you. The shot is just an open window. It gives you a temporary pain-free period so you can strengthen the quadriceps, the hamstrings, and the calves, the muscles that act as your body's natural shock absorbers. You must demand a plan for what happens after the needle comes out. And question number 3, the most important one for long-term joint preservation. Given my current symptoms, am I a candidate for viscosupplementation, a hyaluronic acid gel injection, instead of another steroid? This immediately pivots the conversation away from just numbing the pain and toward actually lubricating the joint. Now, I want to be completely transparent with you. You might hit a roadblock here regarding insurance. In the United States, Medicare and many private insurers often require a patient to fail a cortisone injection first, or they may only approve gel injections for the knee and not other joints. Your doctor might say, well, your insurance won't cover the gel until we try the steroid. If that happens, don't panic. Say, okay, let's document today that the steroid is no longer providing long-term relief, and I would like your office to initiate the pre-authorization for hyaluronic acid for my next visit. You have to be your own advocate. You have to push the paperwork forward, or the system will just keep handing you the cheapest, fastest option, which is cortisone. I want to return to Margaret, the retired teacher from Grand Rapids who was getting cortisone shots every 3 months with shrinking relief. Armed with a new understanding of her own biology, Margaret went back to her doctor. When he walked in with the standard cortisone syringe, she held up her hand. She asked him question number 3. She told him she was terrified of destroying her remaining cartilage and wanted to try lubricating the joint instead of just numbing it. Her doctor admitted that her steroid returns were diminishing. Her office fought with her insurance for 2 weeks, and she was finally approved for a series of hyaluronic acid injections. It was not an overnight miracle. Gel shots rarely are, but about 5 weeks after her final gel injection, Margaret noticed something incredible. The deep, grinding ache she felt every time she stood up from her favorite reading chair was dramatically muted. Her knee didn't feel perfectly brand new, but it felt smoother. Because the friction was reduced, we were finally able to get Margaret into a water aerobics class, a brilliant, low-impact way to build muscle without loading the joint. The water supported her weight while the resistance strengthened her legs. Today, Margaret is back in her garden. She uses a thick kneeling pad, she is mindful of her mechanics, and she still has arthritis. But she is managing it. She is no longer accelerating her own joint destruction. And she has successfully pushed off a total knee replacement indefinitely. That is the power of understanding what is happening inside your own body. You do not have to be a victim of the phrase bone on bone. You do not have to accept a fast track to surgery just because your cartilage is wearing thin. By shifting your mindset from putting out fires to lubricating the machinery, and by strengthening the muscles around the joint, you can reclaim years of mobility. I know navigating the medical system can feel overwhelming, especially when you are in pain. That is exactly why I made this video. I want you to walk into your next appointment feeling confident, informed, and in control of your own body mechanics. To help you do that, I want you to take action right now. Comment downloading guide down below if you want to grab my free printable checklist of these exact doctor questions to take to your next appointment. Comment asking my doctor if you are going to bring up hyaluronic acid gel injections at your next visit. Or comment sending this If you have a friend, a spouse, or a family member who keeps getting cortisone shots and desperately needs to hear this information, if you found this breakdown helpful, please hit the like button. It tells YouTube to share this vital information with other seniors who are struggling with knee pain. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because in our next video, I am going to show you the top 3 exercises to build those shock-absorbing leg muscles without putting any pressure on your knees at all. Until then, remember, your joints are designed to move, and it is never too late to change how you treat them. I'm Dr. Marcus Thorne. Stay strong, stay informed, and I will see you in the next one.